Ah yes, the SmackDown vs. Raw series revolutionized wrestling games, and 20 years since the first game's release, there's still games you can go back to and have a pretty good time if I'm being honest. Now, if you're like me, you've always wanted to know, where do they rank on a list? Well, kind viewer, I'm here to answer your question. This is my official ranking of the SmackDown vs. Raw games. Now, real quick before we start, none of the SVR games are bad. There's not a bad SmackDown vs. Raw game, and this ranking is just my personal opinion. We have a great topic in the comments. Just don't be a heel about it, okay? Let's get started. Coming in last place, unfortunately, we have SmackDown vs. Raw 2008. Released in late 2007, it slowed down the gameplay significantly, which was a trend start in 2006. It added the fighting style system, which was okay at best. You know, it was cool that guys like Taker and Cena could do ground and pounds, and like the UFC. And it was the final incarnation of GM mode until 2K22, and it replaced the season mode. Kinda? 24/7 mode is essentially a season mode meets NBA My Career. You can do stuff on off days like film movies, autograph signing. Kind of dumb if you ask me. It's a pretty bad story mode. I get that Ukes was wanting to try something new, and I have all respect to them for that. Sadly, they just failed. Just didn't hit the mark. However, I do still like this game. I do. It had a small yet decent roster. It was the first game to have Jeff Hardy since SmackDown Shut Your Mouth in 2002. It's got my favorite soundtrack in the series. Artists like 8-Ball and MJG, Hell Yeah, Non-Point, and Puddle of Mud, which the song Famous also appears in UFC Undisputed 2009 coincidentally. There is still fun to be had in 2008. It just didn't quite make the impact that the other ones listed. SmackDown vs. Raw 2009, a solid game in itself. 2009 did a lot of things that would change the franchise for better. For one, you can now do signature moves as an actual signature. Before, for example, Cena's 5-knuckle shuffle would just be a simple grapple you could do, but now they are actually classified as stored signature slots. It also introduced the first road to WrestleMania. All the storylines are great. I remember liking the Cena one especially. It's crazy that MVP got his biggest push of his career in a video game twice, but we'll get to that later. But regardless of that, this game had another banger soundtrack. I don't know what it ranks for me. Maybe that could be a separate video. Let me know in the comments. But the game had the big marketing campaign of a new tag team system, which I didn't capture most of it. But if you were there in 2008, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is technically the last game of the Ruthless Aggression era and the first game of the PG era, as it was the last game that let you do intergender matches. The roster is lacking in legends, the only two being Taz and Flair. See, THQ had a cash grab in mind for 2009 called Legends of WrestleMania. You would expect it to be an SVR clone, but it plays drastically different and it wasn't that good. Sadly, season mode and GM mode were gone. 2009 has a career mode, but it's literally just go wrestle. So I'm not going to talk about it. That's all I'm going to talk about. All in all, 2009, not a bad game, but I think there's better in the series. Taking the number 4 spot, we have the original SmackDown vs. Raw from 2009. It's the closest to the original SmackDown games. It was the game that followed Here Comes the Pain, which was hard enough on its own. I would like to state here that SmackDown vs. Raw is also technically counted as part of the SmackDown franchise. I don't personally count it. I think they're separate series, but apparently they are counted together. It reintroduced commentary into the series, and it had voice acting for the first time with the season mode. It's pretty much an update to Here Comes the Pain, and it introduced the side camera that we still have today in the current 2K games. It did have a lacking roster. Stone Cold, Goldberg, and Austin left the company. If you'd like to learn about the cut content, please go watch my SmackDown vs. Raw cut content video after this. Now that I'm done shilling myself, we can get back to ranking. The original SmackDown vs. Raw was revolutionary for a lot of reasons. It added some risk elements like minute games before a match. Sadly, it did lack a diverse roster, but it does have a very, very good soundtrack. Firefly by Breaking Benjamin is on my playlist for a very good reason. All in all, very good first effort from Ukes. SmackDown vs. Raw 2010. It finally would go back and speed up the gameplay after a couple years of it being slightly simulation focused. It once again featured Road to WrestleMania, the best storyline in my opinion being the Cena Triple H one. The big marketing campaign for 2010 was the updated and improved call system. On my dad's old PS3, I had a bunch of custom calls that I obviously cannot show you now, which sucks because I actually had some pretty dope calls. 2010 is underrated, and I say that in the sense of not that many people talk about it when it gets brought up with SmackDown vs. Raw games or wrestling games. It's not bad, I just think it gets lost in the shuffle, if you know what I'm saying. It's not bad at all. but I do think that there's better efforts in this series. Alright, 3 left. Speaking of number 3, shout out Allen Iverson. Number 3 is going to be SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, a groundbreaking title for wrestling games as a whole. 2006 would offer a lot of new additions like the stamina system, which, let's be honest, we all turned that off. It's got one of the best season modes I've ever played, and it actually matters which brand you pick, and we'll get into that later. But it's got great storylines like the iconic Who Ran Over Teddy Long storyline. And on my Kurt Angle playthrough, I somehow got the ECW storyline with Rob Van Dam, so that was cool. It had a lot of legends like the Three Faces of Foley and Hogan, Rock, Austin, list goes on. Ukes really delivered here. It was the first game to introduce GM mode, and I don't really have anything to say about that. Not because I'm a GM mode hater, I've just never played it. I played the current 2K version, it's, 06 had a lot of cut content, shameless plug times 2. Overall, 06 is a great wrestling game. I recommend it to anybody who enjoys professional wrestling. There's a lot of fun to be had. Go emulate it. Please play the season mode. Alright, number 2 spot. Here's where we're gonna get controversial here. Taking the number 2 spot on my list is going to be SmackDown vs. Raw 2007. Arguably the best one in the series, and it's definitely earned that reputation. I'm using the PS2 version for gameplay, but the Xbox 360 version still looks good to this day. It's got, in my opinion, the best season mode in the series, and it had a lot of customizable features like the locker room, all the cashier in the season mode can be used to buy collectibles like posters, legends. But back to season mode, the reason why I say it actually mattered in 06 what the brand you picked is because on 07 you can actually get traded from shows, which was good. The game does a great job at covering mid 05 to spring of 06. The voice acting is great in this game. 06 and the first SVR had some decent voice acting. There was at times, especially the original was not that good, for being honest. It's actually really good here though. It added a new carry-like system where it would give you control of the move you're doing. So like for example, if you were in a suplex position, you could either go forward or backwards. This game would also change the controls from the circle to the grapple with the right stick. Me personally, I prefer the buttons for grappling, but I can easily go back and forth. I don't really get lost in the shuffle. All in all, 2007, it's definitely a fantastic game. I recommend it to anybody. It's one of those wrestling games where like it doesn't matter if you get the PS2 version or the 7th gen version. They're both great. It's just a graphical downgrade, which, let's be honest, if you're on an emulator, you can just enhance that anyway. Yeah, all in all, fantastic game, really good. Alright, if you've been a fan of my channel for a long time, you saw this coming. At the top spot, I'm giving it to SmackDown vs. Raw 2011, the game that defined my childhood when it comes to the game. The games that defined my childhood were this, Skate 3, and Saints Row the Third. It's wacky, fun, and enjoyable. An introduced universe mode, and I have to say that because we still have it to this day, 14 years later, which is freaking crazy. I've never cared for universe mode apart from that Raid RKO video. I've never even touched universe mode at all. Never cared for it. The weapon physics were actually changed drastically. So before in the previous games, if you wanted to do like a pedigree through a table, you would have to actually get on it to do it. But now, say like, okay, so say you have someone in like a powerbomb position, you can just straight up drop them on it and it'll break. You know, they changed the weapon physics. You could do like a slam onto a chair, and rather than the chair moving out the way, they actually land on it and react to it. It was great. You can change the way you move. You can change the way you move in the direction of the way you do the moves too. So, like for example, if you're by the ropes when you got the AA, you can hold back and do a 360. It's pretty cool, actually. It went crazy with the DLC as well. Sadly, I can't show the DLC because it's no longer available. But it had a bunch of legends. It had Lex Luger, Bret Hart, Classic HBK, the Nexus, NXT, WCW Nitro Arena. Once again, featured Road to WrestleMania, the versus Undertaker being my personal favorite storyline in 2011. Just because with the fact that you could use a car, you could use like R-Truth and Ziggler, I remember that. It had a lot of great unlockables too. Rob Van Dam, who was signed to TNA when the game came out, is in this game as a free agent, which is dope. You also got jobbers like Mike Knox. It's personally my favorite wrestling game due to many of the reasons I said. It laid the groundwork for future WWE games like 12 or 13, and it's very fun and addictive, I might add. And that's why it's number 1 on my list. But what is your list? Leave me a comment, let me know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Tap the bell so you get informed when I drop videos, because I'm going to be trying to drop more scripted stuff like this. Hopefully the video and stuff was better. I saw a lot of you guys' comments and advice. Hopefully the video was better. Yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Peace, guys. I'm out.